it's something that I feel like a lot of people don't have, and it's like so obvious to me that I would like to be able to spread it more, and like and see people just realize like that being alive is such an amazing gift, and it's every day is just like a massive adventure, a world of opportunity, like if you start to realize it.
The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Vitruvian Podcast, a podcast centered around self-mastery. I'm your host, Zach Shankin. Today, I'm joined by Riva Melissa Tez. Easily the hardest guest to summarize in an introduction to date. Riva has lived many lives in one, from toy store magnate turned venture capitalist, angel investor, freedom maximalist, reformed transhumanist, beauty enthusiast, reader, writer, and the list goes on. But at the root of it all, Rita is a clear thinker, curious learner, and fascinating mind. I'm beyond excited and grateful for our conversation today. Riva, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Of
Excited.
course, our journey together started becoming Twitter mutuals, which I thought was a cool moment, at least in my universe. I just was reading through stuff. I went down your rabbit hole. I can't remember who I was first exposed to or first saw your kind of work. And then you've managed to be somewhat public and somewhat private, which I think adds to the intrigue of your character. And I was going through your rabbit hole, going through all the stuff you wrote, excuse me, on your kind of website. And I remember it came across a Rand quote, and I thought it was pretty profound. It was about love. And I tweeted that out, and then you retweeted it, which was kind of like a cool moment. I shot a message over, hey, thanks for the retweet. Would love to have you on the podcast sometime. And then where I want to kind of open our conversation is you messaged me back kind of months later, someone out of the blue, and you were like, hey, somebody sent me your podcast with Winston. I checked it out, and I really liked it. So I guess I would want to lead off. I've never asked this question before, but like, what made you say yes to getting on this podcast with me?
Well, I really appreciated the guests that you put on, right? Like I was like, oh, when I went through your YouTube catalog, I was like, okay, here are interesting people. Like the fact that you'd even know who Winston is to put him on the show, right? I think he's an unbelievably good writer, right? He needs to have more of a platform. So I realized you giving interesting people platforms, but also just the fact that I went through your stuff and it seemed very like philosophically and aligned with me. And I feel like most podcasts. I mean, I get DMs to do like podcasts all the time, but they're all like this is what I messaged you about before. It's like everyone talks about the same shit, right? It's like, tell us your life story and how you got into tech. And it's like, how many times do you want to tell that story? And I watched your interviews and I was like, you ask very thoughtful questions, trying to get to like ideas and connect with people on a much deeper level. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna reply to this guy. Also, he did tweet Ayn Rand, which I didn't know you got it from me in the first place, which is even funnier. But yeah, anyone who tweets an Ayn Rand quote is an ally, I guess, as
Yeah, of
well.
course. I was exposed to Rand at the ripe young age of like 13 or 14. My dad was trying to push capitalism down my throat, and at that time, of course, it's kind of a lot for a middle schooler to digest. So I was very, I guess, resistant to the whole thing, and that was also somewhere around the time where they made that really poor attempt at a movie
Oh
for the
yeah.
John Galt thing, which he dragged us to. But I revisited Rand a lot later, like late high school and into university, and of course I'm obviously struck by and inspired a lot by her work. And I know you're obviously a huge advocate. Currently, still working on potentially making a TV show. What's the update there?
Well, so I've just restarted. I don't even know how many times I've read it. Like maybe it's like my sixth time, but at the time, but my boyfriend gave me for Christmas a first edition of Atlas Shrugged signed. So I was like, okay, well, I've got to read it again, I guess. So I'm just restarting Atlas Shrugged again. Yeah, the TV show. So we wrote myself and Mike Ma, who you probably know of. Mike is a genius, and having never done any screenwriting before, managed to turn the whole of Atlas Shrugged into 13 beautiful episodes. Like it's just an unbelievable feat that he did it, and it's because he's philosophically aligned. If you're philosophically aligned, the inspiration comes very easily, I think. So we wrote all these episodes, and then we like went around Hollywood. Now the reason why that's on a kind of back burner is to your point about the bad movies from before. I'll just say there's like an interesting legal issue going on between like who owns the rights and like what the future of Atlas Shrugged as an adaptation should be. So right now the Daily Wire, so the guys who run like Ben Shapiro and stuff like that, they also doing like, I think, a remake of the film. Now there's just like with that, it would take an entire podcast to go into like the legal details why we put that on a back burner. But basically, I would restart the Atlas Shrugged project when I have the energy to fight for what I think would be what how Ayn Rand would want the adaptation. Like we've done it so before she died, she actually wrote 6 episodes of Atlas Shrugged as a TV show. And I have them. I'm like one of the only people in the world who has them. So we use those as our like base to like write a very authentic, version of Atlas Shrugged, which isn't necessarily like what production studios want. They want like a modern interpretation. Like we read this one version that was, pushed to us where like Dagny was an emoji app CEO. And I was like, Ayn Rand would just like turn in her grave, right? I don't trust that the Daily Wire are going to do a good adaptation either. But there's a lot of pushback about doing it authentically, which is ironic because like if you actually read any of Ayn Rand's work, you should do it authentically as the writer wants it. So when I have a little bit more time to want to fight it, I will bring that project into fruition. It's just when it gets like all legal stuff, I don't know if you're like me, like I'm in it for the philosophy. When it becomes like entertainment lawyers, all this stuff, I was like, man, like I just will come back to it when I have the energy. But it's definitely so we've actually made a trailer, like we've done some stuff, like we filmed some things, but we're gonna that will come to fruition eventually, and it will be beautiful when it happens.
I'm very excited, and I'll be making sure I get myself to a theater when it becomes nationwide, but I have a number of questions off of just that project, and I
Yeah.
promise to avoid legal. I'm curious specifically, like, first of all, and this will be maybe more meta about like how you conduct research, but you are extremely thorough when you do your kind of longer periods of research and you kind of go into these ideas, and it's kind of this self-fulfilling rabbit hole, and then it opens the next door. And I've been, I don't know, when you communicate about your research is exciting to me because there's clearly like a just almost childlike curiosity that you maintain and kind of just follow and almost have play in something that most people treat as like an academic and cold pursuit, most of that being like just how the modern education system is structured and kind of breaks people's love of learning. However, how did you happen upon those like copies? Like, what is the research process when you're saying like, okay, I have the source text, I've been greatly inspired by Rand. How do you find yourself privately owning this like resource, I guess? And how do those other characters not also have access to it?
I mean, I don't know if they do have access to it. Basically, what happened in my case was that the idea of doing Atlas Shrugged is a TV series, not a film, right? So our idea is to do a TV series, kind of like Mad Men style, of 13 episodes, 60 to 90 minutes. The idea came out at a dinner party at Peter Thiel's house. Like it couldn't be more like of a libertarian trope that the idea of this effort came at a dinner party at Peter Thiel's house. But that's where it came. It was during summer 2020, I think, during lockdowns, and like California was turning off its power, and we were like, this is just like Atlas Shrugged, someone should do a good version, not the bad version. And I was like, oh, that should be my project. Like I love this film. I have it I have my favorite line from Atlas Shrugged tattooed on my hand. I was like, like if anyone's going to bring this to fruition, like I should go off and do it. So like I went off from that dinner and I was like, I'm gonna go, and Ayn Rand left her estate to Leonard Peikoff, who's kind of like the guy who has been the guy furthering objectivism ever since she passed away, and a close ally of hers. But like he sold the rights to this other guy who made the bad movies, who still thinks he has a claim. There's a lot of things going on. But the Ayn Rand Institute, I think it was, have like an archive. And I just like spend all my time trying, like, I think people can tell that I'm very authentically interested. And I said, like, I want to do an adaptation to it that's very true to the text. And then in some conversation with some archivist, they were like, I think she wrote 6 episodes before she died. I was like, what? I was like, where are those? And they like went to the archive and they sent me them. And I gave them to Mike, and we were like, okay, well, we should use them as a base to do that. Now, why hasn't anybody else got them? I don't think anybody else is trying to do it authentically to her work, right? They want to do their own spin on it, right? Like everyone wants to do an adaptation for it. So I think the reason why we got it is that we were the only people trying to do it like actually as she wanted. Like if you look at our script, it's like Mike and Ayn Rand, like that's way cooler. So it's just the intention there. It's like people don't even try to dig, like who even knew that she wrote all these episodes? Like I'm sure nobody even asked. Right. It's like, it's just that authenticity to like, I actually cared. I wanted to do it as she wanted. And as I said that, someone was like, she actually wrote it. And I was like, what? That's crazy.
Yeah, it is wild. And then I guess the second question is take us into a window into writing with Mike Ma. Like, what does your role look like besides just I don't know. I can imagine that just being like a fascinating conversation in those rooms. And what is it like to write a TV show? And what is your role in that?
Oh, right. So I'm just going to say, like, all the writing credit goes to Mike. So Mike is, I mean, if you read his books, I hope you have. Have you read Harassment, Architecture, and Gothic Violence? Like, I think he is a genius writer, probably one of the best writers of our generation. And he actually, we're deep friends. So I just, he read Atlas Shrugged first. And we actually had a different screenwriter working on it first, like a more like professional screenwriter, like someone who'd done it before, but didn't love Atlas Shrugged. Mike read Atlas Shrugged, and I think, had the same takeaway that I did, that he resonated with it. And then he was just able to knock out like 13 episodes in a few months, just having never done any screenwriting. Like, he would just every 2 weeks, like, send me a new episode. And it's just like, how does someone like Mike get that geniusness to like go write that? It's like, I think he just, like, it flows through him. It's like a genuine, he read the book, he felt the call to action that someone needs to adapt this well. And like, you read his, like, he's never done any, every single person who's read it has been like, this guy's never done any screenwriting before. It's like, no, like, he literally could just do it because he has the talent and the drive and the authenticity to communicate that philosophy. So like, it wasn't, we were separate. I was going around doing fundraising and all the legal stuff. Mike just came out with 13 episodes, like, written in a few months that were brilliant. So like, I have no claim to that credit wise. Really
Yeah, and you
talented.
touched on something really kind of profound, I think. And it was kind of just a turn of phrase, but like you're saying, it flows through him, right? And I think what I've observed in many thinkers, and it's one thing I wanted to address with yourself, like coming from a very intellectual background, if you will, like studying philosophy, right? Like being an academic, being a researcher. I have this kind of working thesis that like all intellectualism leads to spirituality. And like all of the most profound thinkers, writers, artists that I've come across will never really claim work as their own. Like the only way that they can kind of describe it is they're just like, I don't know. It came through me and I just like was this conduit. And you
Yeah.
touched on something in a podcast. I can't remember which appearance it was, but you said that you have kind of revised your perspective on what the mind is, as opposed to previously producing consciousness. It's now potentially an antenna. I'm open that up a little bit and talk about yourself as a creative force and how you have felt moving into potentially this very woo-woo space that we talk about, like collective
Yeah.
consciousness or something.
Well, I had the same, I think I spent I'm 34 now. I spent my 20s being like, I never want to end up like those people who like turn 30 and get really spiritual. Like, it was like a fear I had. Like, I watched this happen to lots of actually tech dudes that I knew, and they would like make a bunch of money and like do ayahuasca 3 times and then like talk to plants, and I wouldn't be able to connect to them anymore. And they'd like go off and do all this like circling. And I was too much of like well, first of all, I'm English, not California. And then like, too much of a rationalist. And I was like, what are these guys doing? And then I think if you're not closed off to things as much as, and I think I was pretty closed off in my 20s, if you start, and I was a very hardcore atheist, but like, if you start paying more attention to the details, and that's probably what I was saying in the other podcast as well, but there's like a little bit of magic, right? Like, there's like a little way you can get into flow state and like crazy synchronicities. Like, I know people can like, rationalize all these things away, but I started to pick up on it a little bit more in my late 20s. And then a book that really radicalized me, like on the kind of consciousness not coming from the brain, is, well, there's two. One is, and I highly recommend them, and now I'm going to forget the guy's name, but it's called the key to upside down thinking. I'll send it to you and then you can put it in the comments, right? But like, it's called like the upside way to navigate like upside down thinking. And the writer presents like, he's a guy from finance who like started to like also pick up on that there was, like classical materialism didn't answer all of his questions. And he wrote this book of him just like navigating through the research space. And I really like this book because he started off as a doubter, right? He was like, consciousness comes from the brain, materialism is real, like all this kind of stuff. And then as he goes through the book, he starts looking like even at parapsychology. Like, parapsychology used to be this incredible field, right? Like looking at what the mind can do. It was, if you look at the list of people who ran the parapsychology institutes or like were the fellows and stuff, these are really big names in science. Like Einstein was involved, like Tesla, like all these people were interested, like Alan Turing, about what the mind can do. They had these questions. Then sometime in like the 20th century, we just decided that like consciousness comes in the brain, and like the brain is this very like computer-like thing. We should try and build out AI, right? And it's like, this has become dogmatic. Like if you say anything about consciousness now, like if you say any kind of criticism about consciousness not being in some neuron somewhere, then everyone gets really mad, right? But there's not like there's an answer to it otherwise. But yeah, the Guide to Upside Down Thinking. And then there's another book, which is actually by Ben Goertzel, who's big AI researcher, that's called like the proof of psi or something like that. Like again, I'll send it, I'll give it to you so you can link it in the thing. But reading those two books from like scientists who kind of go in to look at it, it's like actually the statistical significance of a bunch of like, parapsychology, like weird psychical tests. Like some of those data is actually more statistically significant than things that we take for granted to be true. Like for instance, like taking aspirin to reduce your risk of heart disease. All of those things are actually less statistically significant if you look at the data than a bunch of like the parapsychology stuff in trials. And I just became more open-minded to it. So like right now it's like, I don't have like a view of like what I think the answer is. I just think there's a lot of dogma right now and like how people think about consciousness, and especially made worse by this AI stuff. Like every AI engineer is like, I'm just going to make this sentient being. They haven't even thought about what the word consciousness means, right? Or what the word agency means. And thousands of years of philosophy has been trying to figure that out. Like science hasn't figured it out either. So I guess my current stance is that I'm just very open-minded. Like I don't have the answer, but I'm open-minded that it might not be in the exact school of thought that everyone's like appealing to right now. And I kind of just stay there in this like open-minded thing. Like I'll read anything. Like I'll read esoteric Eastern philosophy. I'll read 11th century medieval literature. I'm just looking, there's a lot of wisdom hidden in different places. So I just like go out and look for it. But I just keep open is really how I think about it.
Yeah, no, I think that, I mean, that's why that humility to just and like willingness to not get tied into, yeah, I have the right answer, or I have truth with a capital T. Like I was raised Christian, and one thing, like I've circled back to now reading the Bible again, but one thing that turned me off to like Christianity, the religion or the institution, was that it just didn't feel very right that like all of these people that look and sound and live pretty much identical to me seem to be like claiming with like 100% abject authority, like this is absolutely true, these are the rules of the game, this is exactly what's going on. And it just didn't hold up when you had like fringe and test cases. But it also started to sound, as I started to kind of like you said, poke into Eastern philosophy and kind of with an open-mindedness look just for truth. Oh, interesting, like there's a lot of similar flavored things in all of these other worlds, so why do we have to, I don't know. And part of that is maybe fighting like the evolutionary tribalism that like we need to tie ourselves to groups. We want to be able to say like I'm part of the team that thinks the thing that we all agree on. So maybe it's protectionary in that sense, but yeah, I think the humility to search with an open mind.
I'm just going to put another point to that, right? Which is that also the way that we're taught in schools is that there's either things that are right and then there's things that are wrong. Either you know something or don't know something. And I think this is like actually like foundationally wrong, right? Like belief is a spectrum, right? Like there's not many truths that uphold over time for like hundreds of years. They always change in context. Like I think a better framework of thinking about like truth, or like a better epistemological framework to think about like justifying beliefs, would be something that's like a little Bayesian, right? Like you have your priors, right? My current prior is like, for instance, that consciousness doesn't come from the brain. It's like a prior, like I can do that, and like I can get new data, it can update me in different ways, but I think of it as like improbabilities, right? It's like I like 30% think X, or like according to my current levels of justification, I believe Z, right? And it's just not how you're taught in school. You're taught in school that like it's either yes or no. And belief is like not belief, but like the justifying beliefs, right? Like whatever we define to be true, like it's just there's a lot of arrogance that it's binary, and it's not. It's a spectrum. And I think once you start thinking of like intelligence, or not even intelligence, but when you start thinking of like kind of your own world model is much more probability, like a much more probabilistic sense. It opens up a lot of room, right? Because it's like everyone presents like they know things. I'm like, you know nothing. Like you haven't gone and checked this thing out. Like you can't tell me where consciousness is. Like you read it in some book somewhere when you were like 12. Like, and it's that I think causes the issue. And that's one of the reasons I'm really angry actually about state-run education, because if you look at all education before 100 years ago when the state took over, philosophy was a foundational principle of all of it. Like epistemology was a foundational principle because you're meant to figure out how to justify your beliefs, or like how to think about justifying your beliefs before you absorb the data, right? The data of the world. And right now we just go to school, we learn to absorb the data, and people think in all these binary ways, right? You see that in politics and anything, right? It's like, it's either yes, no, black, white, like this tribe or that tribe. It's like the humility, I think, comes from just understanding that everything is a really complicated system, and that one truth is dependent on a whole other class of other truths everywhere else, and taking that with a much more probabilistic way is probably a better way to navigate the world. And if all of science thought like that, like it would be like a huge increase, I think, in like, valuable knowledge in like 10 years, right? If like someone just took the probability pill a little bit into their own epistemology.
I agree. And I think what you're hitting on is the fact that like most people simply don't think this deeply. Part of it, agreed, like the state doesn't really facilitate teaching people or even giving them the space to like learn the skill of depth of thought, like rigorously testing and approving their own belief systems, like forming an actual worldview that isn't just, and it reminds me of a phrase, like it's better to have strong opinions loosely held than loose opinions strongly held. And
Yeah.
that's another thing for yourself. Like you have kind of had this interesting arc where you started, and you've even touched on it in this episode, like being very maybe dogmatic in some of those beliefs. And especially like, I don't know, like all the way from transhumanism to where you find now, like almost believing in God, right? Like, or even so believing in God and like embracing beauty and reading poetry and all these other things that are much more in that ayahuasca drinking woo woo camp. But
Yeah.
that's why I am impressed by you as a thinker, because you're clearly just curiously searching for truth as opposed to like, yeah, trying to like publish a paper and prove X, Y, and Z. But you have touched on multiple times like the state acquisition and then also even the consciousness thing, like all these great thinkers. And then at some point, it just became kind of, it just got very cold and binary potentially. I am a proud tinfoil wearing person, partially entertaining, but I also think that anyone who does their own research starts to find that there might be some cracks in the modern framework for what history is. So I'm curious, through your research, also exposure to some of these larger characters in the world of venture capital, et cetera, how much do you think about the like counter narrative or conspiracies, if you will, both with like history? Because you've talked about like, especially in your piece, Every Angel is Terrifying for Praxis, like you talk about like revisionist history. How much of that stuff do you think really is the way it is? And also, how important is it to even, because I think you could spend your whole life trying to prove what is right and what is wrong in history, and you could try to find like the dustiest piece of paper that tells you X, Y, and Z about like who wrote what. How much of that do you consciously like engage with now?
Well, I started doing this research into like biblical manuscripts last year, and then I have been writing a book about like I've been trying to just find time to write this kind of like, what is history? How much of it's kind of like the field of historiography, right? It's like the study of history in itself as a field, and like one of the things I've just been so shocked by it is that like people build their world models, like the same thing that I'm saying about believing your beliefs, like the fact that people think of like the past history as like foundationally true and valid, right? It's like history gets continuously rewritten over the time. And not only that, but like even if you go way back, like it's even flimsier then. It's like everyone's like, well, we definitely knew what the ancient Greeks did. And I'm like, yeah, really? Are you sure? Like we don't have many manuscripts with like primary sources. And not that the primary sources are necessarily honest either. So it's like the same thing where like when you go into it, it's not conspiratorial. It's just like the incentives of the field and the people involved and everybody in something that seems as friendly as history gets corrupted over time. It's just set between centralized power and like new platforms of where you write history. Like look at what Wikipedia is doing. Wikipedia is writing history like as we see it. Like I literally just watch it on like if you're a Wikipedia editor now, you're like you have an unbelievable power in the world, like unbelievable power. So it's like these kind of things have always been political. Now, what do you mean? Like, do I think very conspiratorially? Like, I hate this word conspiratorial because it's like I don't know if it like emerged like in the 60s around JFK being assassinated, that like if you doubted like the mainstream thing, then you're like a conspiracy theorist. And it's like I think like it's just been given this name, right? Like if you question the narrative, it's like how the fuck are people not questioning the narrative? It makes no fucking sense, right? It's like if you're not if you're not questioning the narrative, you're just like retarded. Like I can't, I don't have any other way. Like I don't use the word conspiracy theorist. It's like literally, I think was created by the CIA to like, disqualify people who like looked into JFK assassination, which is also weird as fuck, right? It's like, like everyone should be asking questions, right? And it's like, it's not that I think there's even has to do, like, I don't take it so far that I think there's like some sort of deep state cabal that's like doing bad things, like sacrificing children. I wouldn't be surprised. But like, it's just the fact that like we should obviously question everything. And the reason why we don't question everything is because we go to these schools now, which are also run by the state, that tell us not to question anything. So it's like we're our own worst enemies. It's going to take a generation to step outside of it. Like I can't believe some of my most intellectual friends put their kids in government run schools. I'm just like, I would rather have my kid like running around in a field, like reading like a book a year than like ever having like a random state person like touch their heads, like their minds. So it's like, what do you mean by conspiratorial? Like who, if you're not questioning things at this point, especially like now after COVID, all these weird things and Epstein and stuff like that. Like I told the story of like Jeffrey Epstein to like my goddaughter. And I was like she doesn't know the story because it's not so big in England. And I was like, then he like died, and then like the cameras went out, and then also the wardens were asleep, and like she just started laughing, right? Like she's 18, so she like hasn't been programmed to like not, she's like, that's obviously ridiculous. And I was like, you don't understand, like people in America still think this is real. Like it's so weird. So it's like, I don't know, like I'm on your team, I guess.
No, 100%. And I mean, it's why I kind of like am always kind of proud to own the tinfoil hat, the conspiracy thing, because people will throw stones, right? Like the second you start asking questions, they'll call you a conspiracy theorist, they'll call you whatever, right? It's part of it, is because it like fundamentally unhinges their world models, but part of it too is that like they're protecting their camp and their tribe. But I guess the second question is for you building your world models, for you personally, like your worldview, your philosophy, your epistemology, how do you frame it knowing that potentially all of this, the bedrock with history, is either revised or uncertifiable to some degree?
I just find it extremely freeing, right? Because it's like, it's the same thing about when you look at science and you realize like now like the academic kind of institutions are falling apart, right? Like everyone's realizing that, like Harvard is stupid and like run by weird people, and like all this stuff is so crazy, and like none of the papers replicate, and like I've been criticizing academic institutions for a long time, but like the same thing is like looking at history is not any different than looking at any other field. Like every field is corrupt and stupid right now. Like it's like history is no different to anything else, right? Like the incentives are misaligned, like everything is politicized. And like, how do you build your world model? Like you don't. I think that's probably one of the reasons why I'm really curious, because I just don't believe anything that I've been taught. So I'm just like, well, I don't know anything about, like, I'll say to myself late at night, like drives my boyfriend wild. I'll be like, no, I don't really know anything about like the 9th century or something like this. And I'll just like go and like read bits here and there and blah, blah, blah. It's like, presuming you don't know anything, it's not like I'm going to presume the things I read and factually correct too. But like presuming that like everything, again, if you think of it in a Bayesian framework, that like you can start adding probabilities, like this probably happened. There's a lot of references to this, right? Like if you read a lot of religious scripture, there was definitely a flood at some point, right? Like everyone talks about it. Like it's like you start to pick up on things, like that things happen. But I think it just becomes way more freeing when you realize like most of it is bullshit, because it's like how it's like, instead of thinking like everyone thinks that everything's already been figured out. So everyone's like, well, there's no point looking at history, or no point looking at anything, because it's already been documented and figured out. It's like, oh man, like no, like you could totally rewrite the whole medieval period if you wanted to. So there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, and I just find it really interesting. It's not a thinking that realizing that everything is like, it's not about being factually true or correct. It's just that like everything is, up for negotiation, is I think an extremely freeing thing if you're a freeing concept, if you're a intellectually curious person.
I think it absolutely is and can be, but I'm smiling because you're like so excited and positively skewed by this concept. But I know that even in my own personal experience, say you come up through some level of programming and you start to, you read your first conspiracy theory on Twitter or something, right? And then you're like, that's interesting. Like, tell me more about this Federal Reserve, or tell me more about the JFK thing, or 9/11 or whatever. And you start to kind of really realize that, yeah, the foundation is a little cracky. Maybe there's something else going on here. And it can, I think, depending on the lenses you're viewing it with, get scary first, right? Because then it's like everything I've been told is a lie. The foundation of my belief about whether it is something really massive like God, or something that's, I guess, more material, like an event in history. Did you ever experience a period in your life where it became kind of like a dark night of the soul, I guess, for uncovering information, or was it always, because I know like at a pretty young age, even with the toy store thing, like you were pretty disconnected from, as people in the zeitgeist now would say, like the Matrix, I guess. But I don't know. I'm curious if you've ever navigated any sort of like negative emotion associated with going down those rabbit holes.
I mean, totally. Like, I have, the more I read about the US government, the more I dislike the fact that I'm here, right? Like, it keeps me up at night sometimes, right? Like when I go and I think if I read too much history about America, I'm like, why am I here? Like, it's disheartening to read some things because you just realize how few things you can trust, right? Like, I just it's not that it's easy going to like be curious about everything and navigate. Like, I remember the other day, like maybe it wasn't the other day, it was like a year ago. It's like I don't really know, like in England you don't really learn about American history. It's not like a thing that we learn about. Like, America is like weird to us. It's like just like Hollywood, that's it. So I was like, I'm just gonna read about like the JFK stuff because I just found it interesting. And I like read about the Kennedy family, like they all died in weird ways. It's like after a while, I was just like, didn't even care about JFK. I was like, what was happening in this family? Like, it's so insane. Like, even his like Jackie like marries like another person, like Anas's family, and like his son dies in the 9/11 plane. Like, it's just like it's like crazy coincidence. There's just so many weird things going on. And it's one of those things where it's like, I just realized I'm also like a serf, right? Like, I'm never going to figure out the truth. Like, if I think all these people on the internet like are convinced they're going to figure out the truth, right? They're like, you've got this answer about like Epstein or like how the Fed works, like all this kind of shit. It's like, you don't know fucking anything. Like, you get all your news from like, the New York Times, you get it from, government filtered things, right? Like, you can't figure it out. But like at the same time, like, isn't it, yeah, you can feel dark, right? But like, it's better to just go into it not necessarily trying to find an answer, but just realizing that things don't add up. And a lot of the times, the thing that does make me feel better is that one of the things I've learned, I kind of like figured out as I matured, is that at the beginning, you start to think like there must just be like groups of small people with like plans who are like doing things in the world. And like when I was younger, I was like, I just need to find the good people with the good plan, right? Like, I'll find them. And I spent all of my 20s trying to find the people with the plan, right? And like nobody has a fucking plan. And it's the same thing on the bad side, right? You start to realize that like most of the stuff that happens is not from like people acting of bad intentions or being evil or like, Illuminati kind of vibes. A lot of it is just like mass incompetency and then like memetics, right? Like, people aren't really caring. Memetic but memes, like not as in like an actual meme, but like memetic thought spread, like the DEI, like all the this like diversity inclusion stuff. And after a while, like, how do you end up with like Claudine Gay like running Harvard? It's like it's just like natural incompetency like across and values just being disregarded along the way. So I think one of the things that has brought me comfort instead of like getting down about it, it's just being like, a lot of it isn't ill intentions. It's the high cost of often good intentions, but from really mediocre people. So it's like, it's really like what you just end up realizing is like the world is like just run by really mediocre. There's like a lot of mediocrity and there's a lot more like opportunity to actually go and do stuff. And then when you think about it in that lens, it becomes like a little less disheartening, right? It's like it's just a bunch of stupid people like making decisions.
I've definitely landed in a place of agreement with yourself, but I do think that that is fostered through a lens of self-efficacy, which I know that you talk about being so incredibly important, and I completely agree. Through however I got here, combination of my upbringing, trauma, etc. Like, I found myself being somebody skewed towards the self-efficacious, the agentic, like believing I can go into the world, like poke the world, make a dent, kind of like the Steve Jobs quote. I think it's extremely important for many people to feel the same way. But like I just described, say somebody becomes at least just baseline curious and then they start searching and then it's like, wow, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's powers that be. I'm just one person. I think it can be equally disheartening unless you have that like kind of the magical switch or the right lenses to put on. How do you think about distributing that the idea of self-efficacy, or if somebody's listening to us and they've, I don't know, hit any of these conspiracies and maybe they're in a place where they don't feel like they have a lot of control, how would you go about like raising one's level of self-efficacy?
Oh, that's a hard question. How do you increase your own self-efficacy? Well, I think to my previous point, although it's not maybe the most eloquent, is that you got to realize that most people are really like again, like the world is run by extremely mediocre people. Like you think that all these people in positions and experts and stuff like know what the fuck they're doing, and like they don't. And it's just there's a lot of checklists and institutions and tick boxes and stuff like that. Like the really smart, crazy, cool people, like the Elon Musk, like the super high self-efficacy people. The reason why you can tell that they have high self-efficacy is that they can jump from different industries, right? Like Elon Musk can go from payments to like space to like also autonomous cars. And the reason why he can do it is I think if you look at the Elon Musk kind of like model of the world, I think he's realized like all these industries are just like full of like they're like dying industries of mediocre people just doing like repetitive tasks. And if you go into any of them with a high agency and like you try, like it's like there's actually nobody trying to like do anything, right? And I think maybe a way for people to get that kind of inspiration is to read about the people who have high self-agency, have self-efficacy, like you said. Like the Elon Musk is a great example. Like he obviously has very high self-efficacy. Like he doesn't think he can't do anything, and like he's a true Randian hero. There aren't many of them, but I do think there are a bunch of people like that in Twitter, right? Like you don't have to be as big as Elon Musk. Like people who just have authentic voices who communicate their own thoughts. Like sometimes, like I feel when I read other people, like sometimes it's like a memetics again. When I read other people being very authentic online, and if I follow people who are, even if I don't disagree, if I don't agree with their views, but they speak authentically and I can tell they're passionate and stuff, increases my self-efficacy because I'm just like, oh wait, like why are we trying to be overly professional? Or why are we not saying how we feel, right? So it's like the low level hanging fruit, I think, is to find people who people respect that have like seem to have high self-efficacy or are passionate in an area that you like, and just following them. It's like I try and look for people who are authentic and have high integrity. And I don't really care so much about what their views are, right? Because like that's kind of bit is subjective and like people can differ. But I do enjoy finding people who like present arguments well and like have that confidence, right? And that authenticity to like express their views. And like podcast, I mean, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, but like, podcasts, other friends have told me, like, I have the only one of the podcasts I do listen to, like, apart from that, I've now listened to yours, is Robert Breedlove's like What Is Money podcast. Like he has all these great guests talking about philosophy and stuff like this. And it's like you just go and you can find those people. It's probably people like that in people's like immediate families and communities, right? You can say like, who in my network has the highest self-efficacy? And the way you can test that is like, do they go after their goals? And are those goals ones, but first of all, like realistic? And like, are they able to achieve them? Like look for the people who are able to execute around you, right? Like I grew up in a small town in England that made socks. Like nobody around me was like executing very well. And I came to San Francisco and I was like, oh my gosh, like everybody here is just like, I started this company. I was like, okay, I'm going to move to San Francisco, even though I'm the dumbest person in the room. I was like 22. I was like, because I just want to be around super high self-efficacy people. And like, I think that's the same for everybody else. It's like, if you want to learn that as a skill, go put yourself in that environment where other people have it. It can be in your immediate community. It could be maybe moving to a different place. Like New York is more high self-efficacy than like, I don't know, even Los Angeles, right? Like people are there, being ambitious and fighting and fast paced. And it's like, you just can go and like be in that environment. I think like energetically, like you pick it up. So it's just, you got to set the intention to like be around that energy, I think.
I completely agree. And then there is like, it's almost a bit of a paradox with self-efficacy because you want to think that like if you're one of those characters, you can create the environment, right? Because you're so high self-efficacy, like I can fix it. But it's like you versus many forces, and you might be able to like twist and conform the environment with one person. But if every person around you is consistently shooting down your dreams and aspirations or making you feel like the weirdo because you want to do whatever, write on Twitter, start a venture capital fund, whatever it is, it is much better to just extricate yourself from that and plant yourself where the soil is fertile.
Totally. And like, sorry, I just to interrupt. It's like, I moved to San Francisco, one, for that reason, but like, people's immediate family, like all this stuff is important. Like I mean, it really radicalized me in the last few years just to think about like you are like the sum of the 5 people around you, right? Like, they're gonna have the biggest influence in your life, like who you talk to every day. And when I realized that, I was like, like, do I want the qualities of the 5 people closest around me? And it's like, you might not be friends with Elon Musk, right? But like, you might have a really ambitious person in your network, and it's like, you should invest more in like being friends with that person, right? Or like trying to find like, or going to meetups and groups and doing that. It's like, in the last few years, even though I'm in my mid-30s, like it's a late time for me to do it, but I really try to refactor my friendship social group to be like, what are the qualities I'm looking for to try and gain as a person? And like, how do I build that like chest of people around me who already have those skills that I respect and that I can admire. It's not about using people as a means to an end. It's more about like, just reminding yourself that like your brain via osmosis energetically picks up the characteristics of the people around you. Like at the time in my late 20s, I was hanging out with a bunch of women who like talked about shoes all day. Like I did like that, but after a while, I was like, I don't know if this is where I want to be in my life. So it's like, I just chose to hang out with more philosophical people and it shaped me better. So it's like this very low level hanging fruit, I think, that like people just like ignore or like hasn't like clicked into their minds so much.
What are some of those things that you're trying to foster within yourself through other people right now?
What am I trying to foster? Well, I'm trying to be better at communications. Like I know that people think like you think I'm a good writer. Like I guess I am. I enjoy writing and I find like an easy, medium of discourse. I don't like speaking. Like I actually like have an issue with it. Like I don't like doing like I haven't done many podcasts. Like I think I told you like the David Perel podcast that came out, like we filmed it like 3 times, right? Like I don't enjoy it. So I'm practicing it, right? Like I'm doing more, like I'm doing these kind of things. And I'm trying to be around people who I respect. Like my boyfriend has unbelievably good communication skills. And I'm like, I watch him with his daughter, which is such a weird way to learn. And I like learn things from that. And like another thing that I want to learn about is like certain topics, right? Like when I was really interested in my pathogen research, I spent a lot of time hanging out with like bio people and like weird, like, I was doing weekly calls with like pathogen researchers in other parts of the world because I just want to learn what they knew. Right now, I have a very similar thing that like I really want to catch up with crypto. Like I'm a little bit behind. DeFi summer was good to me. I kind of took a year out, and right now, like I'm trying to find people who like like I've been working and being around people who like know things that I don't, and I go in with that community that like I actually just want to like learn some of the things that are in their brain, right? Like industry wise. So that's one thing. And then another thing is that I really respect like a mentor of mine, like I talk about a lot of Jim Keller, who is now 10 star in Atomic Semi, but he used to be at Intel, like people who built good family lives, right? Like how many families do you like go hang out with that like a really strong, healthy family that you want to like emulate and build and recreate? It's like one of the things I'm trying to do in my 30s, like look for families or like couples or things like that like I respect how they have their like family structure and they seem happy and that their kids are well-rounded, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like I'm also trying to like build up better relationships with that. And a friend of mine had a really interesting like a thing that seems a little bit clinical, but I actually really liked it. He said that at the beginning of every year, he writes his top 20 friends, right? Like the people that he actually like values the most, and him and his friends all share those lists with each other, which is like crazy for most people to think, right? Like he does this. And the reason why he said he does it is that he's like, like sometimes we're quite passive with our social time, right? Like we'll be like, it's a weekend, we go for the friends who are nearest, whatever. And if you write that list and you make it kind of explicit, like, here are friends that I really respect that I don't spend much time with, you start to realize when you have free time, it's like, you know what, I'm going to go on a trip and like go find that friend, right? Or like make sure I invest in that friendship. Because sometimes, especially as you get older, like you can go a year without seeing someone, which is crazy. So it's like you make this list, you make it explicit. Like, what are the qualities these people have? Like, who do you want to invest time with in a friendship wise, in in social settings? And you make it explicit, and you just like start to set the goals. Like, hey, I have a free weekend there. Like, what trip? What friend should I bring on this trip? Right? Like, who do I want to have? Like, what am I thinking about right now? Like, okay, I'm thinking about like sovereign individualist style libertarian philosophy. Like, which friends should I bring together and say like, hey, let's take a weekend away and like debate this for 3 days. Right. It's like, it's just being much more intentional with my time. I think like a lot of people in their 20s, like, just end up like just hanging out with your friends, right? Like anyone that's around that you grew up with. Like, I don't care so much about familiarity so much as like I care about, I guess, learning things. I don't know if that's good.
No, I mean, I think the important thing is that you actually know yourself and you're willing to express your desires versus like falling victim to whether it is memetics or just general social pressure to be like, yeah, I'm just doing the thing that like the crowd's going to the place and we're going to talk about whatever happens to come up versus
Yeah, I
like, yeah,
can't.
I'm seeking specific information or knowledge or wisdom or skills or family unit structure. So I'm actually going to seek it out. But I do think that there's an interesting duality that arises as many things in life where there's kind of a, like you when you were younger, putting yourself in San Francisco, there probably wasn't a position where you had the sway in a lot of those rooms, but you were putting yourself in a place where entropy and magic is likely to happen. So I guess even now, how do you ride that line between maximizing for the chance of something serendipitous happening to you, but then also being like, I guess, strict and organized with how you're allocating your time intentionally?
Oh, that's such a good question. Well, firstly, like on the serendipity, entropy, magic comment, right? Like, I think one of the strongest ways that like young people can kind of, find their networks is like one, like I didn't have anything to say for myself when I moved to San Francisco. I just made sure I was really useful to a lot of people and I asked good questions, right? I was like, okay, like how can I help these people? And like I'd go to different events, like longevity events, stuff like this, and I'd be like, how can I help? Like I just like literally volunteer. Like I volunteered at so many, I literally just volunteered last month at a $3 billion crypto company because I was just like, I want to help you guys like do things, right? Like it's like there's a lot of value in just like giving people your time, and like everybody needs help on different things. So like a lot more of the world is open to people than they realize, right? It's like just go offer your time. Like, everyone thinks like they got to be paid, but sometimes I'm just like, I want to go learn something. Like I'm just going to go help out on this project or do something like this and like set these kind of goals. So like, yes, you can keep there's some intention in that stuff, but I guess like I'm intentional with who I spend time with. I think the thing where I bring in more of the chaos and the entropy and stuff like that is like things like what we do, right? It's like, anybody can like go to a pub or like host a dinner party. If you don't get deep, right? Like you don't get really deep when you do these kind of things. And then one of the things I'm organizing right now is like, trips with my friends for like 3-4 days. Like we go to a beautiful place or a weird place, or like we go to Paris, or we do different things. But it's like, the chaos, like the change, I took 15 of my friends to Istanbul for my birthday, right? It's like we're suddenly in this, Oriental Middle Eastern place, which is like half Europe, half Asia, and like most of my friends have never been there before. So like it was like a new place for us to like discuss philosophy and life and all of these things. So like, and I'm not saying that everybody has to travel around the world to do these crazy things. Like you don't have to do that. But it's like even just camping, right? You can just go camping. You can change like the setup of like the experiences that you have with people. Like one of the things that me and my boyfriend noticed is that every time we plan a trip, like, and sometimes I like to like plan lots of things. And even though I love serendipity, I find serendipity in like the in between things of like maximizing like surrealism, right? I'll be like, okay, we're going on this trip. I'm gonna find like the weirdest restaurants, the best art galleries, all these kind of things. And it's like actually like you set those intentions and you start walking to one, and then when you're on the way to one, you might notice there's a cooler thing over there that you end up going to, right? But you set the intention to do something, and like you might not end up going to do exactly what you wanted to do, but like there's freedom. Like I try, like for instance, I don't mind if my plans change. Like if I go out with my boyfriend and evening, we end up changing our plans. It's like some people are like, oh, if I got this plan, I've got to stick to it. It's like you can go where the flow is, like where you feel you want to go, kind of energetically, or where you get spiritually pulled to go. So it's like you make the plans, but you don't have to stick to them. Like you don't have to like keep with them all the time.
I had a previous guest of this podcast, another Twitter writer, Hua Fury. He brought up something about travel because he's like very bullish on traveling a lot, like the nomad lifestyle. And I think my age people came up in the generation like this, like wanderlust, like go travel the world, find yourself, just in a very like aesthetically romantic sense. But I don't think there was like a lot of meat on those bones. And so I was never personally like called to like, oh, I want to travel the world. But I have done a fair amount of traveling and it's been incredibly personally expansive. And he pointed out that you can think of yourself as like a point on a Cartesian plane. And simply by moving the same point to a different location, its actual like principles and qualities change simply by moving it on that plane. And you're the same way. So simply just moving your body into an uncommon place that it's not familiar with, whether that is camping in your local area or plane ticket to the other side of the world, like it forces your brain to think differently. You're literally engaging with your environment differently, and I think that's where we get a lot of those like really expansive creative moments.
100%. And another thing that I would also suggest is like more people doing things on their own, right? Like everyone does, like we've just been talking about doing things with friends, but one of the first international trips I ever did was when I was 18 and I got my student loan, which is obviously meant to go on my university degree, but I didn't. I just bought a one-way flight to New York from London. Like I'd never been to America before. And I like couldn't even afford to come back. I had no idea where I was going to stay. I was like, did it as like a challenge. I was like, I'm just going to go there and like figure it out, right? Like I had barely any money. And I just went there, like I messaged every person I knew at the time. I didn't have a big network. And I found out someone's aunt like let me stay in like a room, and like I paid a little bit of money. And I ended up like I was like, I set myself this weird challenge. Like, I'm just gonna go to a place and like see what happens, right? And it's like it's a crazy adventure. Like I made all these like random friends. I had to work to like get my paid under the counter to like get my paid for my flight back. It's like it's like people should do more like adventures on their own, right? Like pretty much all my favorite adventures until my most recent boyfriend have been on my own. Like I would just go and wander around, like go to a random American city and like walk around it, like go sit in a hotel bar and like talk to the oldest person there. There's a lot of low level hanging fruits, like just go have an adventure. And I think most people can't have adventures on their own. And if you can't have adventures on your own, how do you expect to have all these adventures with other people, right? Like I am my own best friend. One of the things I hate is I hate being around people all the time. Like I'm like, I need to go off and do my own thing. Like I go on hikes. Like this is such a low level like hanging fruit for adventure. I leave my house. When I'm in LA, it's very pretty. When I'm in Las Vegas, it's very surrealist and gambly. But like they're both very, unique locations. And I just walk. Sometimes I use this app. I don't know if you've heard of it, Random Nautica. It just randomly selects you points, right? It just randomly sends you like a geolocation. It says like, they picked this place to go. And sometimes I'll just like randomly walk in a direction for like 6 miles and I'll find like weird architecture or I'll see an interesting bird. You know what I mean? Like it's not like you have to like fly to the other part of other places in the world. Like I think that's obviously advantageous, but until you can find beauty in the small details in the areas around you, those long distance trips aren't going to make any difference either, right? It's like unless you can walk out your house, like I walk out my house, I feel ecstatic. Like I'm like, wow, look at these flowers, look at all these things. Like the nature is different today. Like this, like I look into people's houses, like I like snoop a bit, I'm like, what's this interior decor in Beverly Hills? Everyone has exactly the same. It's like when you start paying attention to like small local areas around you, like you start to realize that everything's an adventure. Like the other day I got so excited. My boyfriend was like, why are you excited? I was like, oh, we're leaving the house. And he was like, where are we going? And I was like, oh, I don't know. I was just so excited to go outside. Like, it's like, I don't know, maybe I don't feel like a lot of people have that energy, but like if you can get it and cultivate it, then like honestly, the world is your oyster.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, as sad as it may be, it's really more of a recovery or a remembering. Because when you look at a child, they do that by default, right? Like they're enamored by a long strand of grass or like falling down, like something very mundane. And they're just like giggling and laughing and crying and just like their eyes are wide open. And something about, I mean, there's a lot of people that write about it. And again, we've talked about the formal education system. There are both institutions that beat it out of us, but tragically, it's like sometimes it's the people that love us the most too, because like they have stuff hammered into their heads. So they say like, hey, you shouldn't crawl on the grass because there's bugs or worms or whatever. And then slowly you start to like get your reality boxed in and things become a lot less shiny. So I do think it takes a level of intention to try to relearn that ability.
Yeah, it takes a level of intention and it just takes like, sometimes I do this thing, it's like a thought experiment, right? Where I close my eyes and I imagine like I'm an alien or something. I've just like come to Earth and I open my eyes and I'm like, wow, this is so cool. Like everyone's like, have we found water on Mars? I'm like, yo, I get like a bottle of water from the Medici Family Spring, put in a glass bottle and sent to me. I'm just like, yo, this shit is crazy. Like it's like everyone's looking for aliens. Remember there's like like the Mexican government brought out those like weird aliens. It's like I still don't like understand what the fuck happened there, right? It was so weird. They brought these Mexican aliens. I was like, yo, have you guys like seen a rabbit? Like it's like the animals around us like pretty weird. Like there's all this stuff. It's just like people have they take it for granted, right? Like you see it so much over time that you're looking for novel things. Everyone's looking for water on Mars. It's like I'm pretty impressed by this. It's like but everyone's chasing novelty, but taking for granted the things immediately around them. And I think it's just something that people have to practice, right? It's like really think about it. Like sometimes I just like put my hands under running water and I think about how like for hundreds of thousands of years, nobody could even imagine having hot running water accessible at any time, right? Like it's incredible. And when you have that and you start to really think about like, how did this end up coming here? Like my boyfriend complained about the post office like the other day and I was like, think about like I know it's terrible to go to the post office, but like imagine how mail worked hundreds of years ago. We were from horse to horse to horse. Like it took forever. Like you had to like even the fact that we have email now. Like when you start to like really think about complex systems and history and like what's accessible now, it's like okay, like if you understand that running water is so precious and like amazing and like a modern invention, then taking a bath is like an ecstatic experience. I'm like, there's bubble bath, there's hot water. It's like, it's just, there's so many things around us. I think most people just really just aren't paying attention to. And it's just, you have to slow down and like, think about it, right? Like think about everything you do on a day-to-day basis, like evaluate it instead of just being robotic and going through the system, right? It's like, take a shower every day. Next time you have a shower, when you get in it, be like, wow, like for hundreds of years, like, King Henry VIII smelled like crap, right? Like these are the richest people in the world. They didn't smell good. They didn't have access to hot running water all the time. It's like they would fantasize about something like this. And like I think about it and I have my shower and I really try and enjoy it, right? And I really try and like take pleasure in it. And I think like that is something that I, read, like Rilke, the poet, I talk about a lot, like definitely things like that. Salvador Dali, like I had this Salvador Dali quote written on my wall in college that said, every day when I wake up, I think I will die from an overdose of satisfaction. I mean, what a great quote, right? He's just like waking up and feels like that. But like that's how you should feel, because like every person who's dead like wishes they were alive right now, having access and the opportunity that you have when you wake up in the morning, right? One time I stopped eating gluten, and my friend Rob Reinhardt, like he was the guy who started Soylent, he's a very eccentric guy, but he said to me, he's like, Riva, people are dead. And those dead people, like they just dream about eating bread. They just want like soft bread. They're like, how can you cut this thing out of your life? And I was like, he gave me a point, right? Like it's just like, it's just people take things for granted, right? Like I want to try everything a little bit.
Yeah, and I think to actually be able to get to the place where you are now, short of like some sort of psychotic snap or like a, psychedelic induced realization, I do think people, like you said, you have to kind of earn your way back to it, or like remember and desensitize it. I hate the like kind of mental masturbation around like dopamine detoxes, because they come
Yeah.
right back online and tell people about it afterwards. So it's like meaningless anyway. But I do think that periods away from technology, like lowering the amount of inputs going into your brain, is the only way that you're going to be able to have the like neurosensitivity to smile at a sunset or a tree, or taking a walk and feeling the breeze on your face. So that's definitely something that like I would recommend and have. Like for last year for my birthday, I did a 5-day fast and silent retreat. And like you talked about being alone, I'm somebody who's spent a lot of time thinking in my own head. So like I've been kind of a lone wolf type, but when I like, day 3 or day 4, I'm sitting there, just thinking. And I realized that up and until that point at 24, like I don't know that I have ever been in a room or like gone more than 2 consecutive days without seeing another human alive. Like, and that was like a very crazy realization to myself, because I think I do spend a fair amount of time alone, but then those alone times are quickly contained by going to the gym or talking to a friend or whatever, like maybe it's 4 hours alone in your room working, but that same day you're seeing, 15 people after, you're playing a sport, you're doing all these other things. So true solitude, true freedom from stimulation is like maybe the rarest commodity.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I feel like a lot of people who, try and look for love and relationships and stuff, like people can't sit alone. Like they can't like be with their own thoughts for a long period of time. They're either with someone or they're on their phone. Like everyone's always doing something, right? And it's like you should practice, and not everybody should, but like something that I when I was living in San Francisco and when I first moved and I started to like work and like make a bit of money and do stuff, and I was so social. Like one day I just rented this house. I can't even drive, but I rented this like house in Joshua Tree that was just a place I would go to completely alone. I invited like 2 friends to come stay once. But I had this place in Joshua Tree where I would just go. It was so cheap. It was like, like it's not like prime property. It's not even in Joshua Tree. It was like really in the middle of nowhere. And I would just get a fly to Palm Springs, get some groceries for like a week or two. And I would just go there and I wouldn't speak to a single person. I didn't like, I just completely zone out. I would like read and do stuff. And it was such a meditative experience, right? Like by the end of it, like you start to, like a lot of the concerns that are like in your daily busy life like fade away. Like I would love, it's been on my list to do this for a long time to like actually go and really do like a silent retreat, and I'd love to learn more about your experience there. But it's just like even more low hanging fruit, right? It's like just going on trips on your own, or like renting a house and being alone for a couple of days and like reading. And I noticed, I don't know if it's the same thing. Like I'm curious about it from like a meditation, like from a retreat standpoint, like a silent retreat, because one of the things I noticed is I had the same I went through the same phases every time. For the first 24 hours, I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Right. I was like, I miss people. I get like, I'm still in the busyness. Right. Then I start to like go into it. Like by like day 3, like I'm calm. Right. And like I'm in a new spot. And then by like day 5, I'm in like crazy flow state. Right. It's just like getting there. right? Like, you have to like get there. And I think most people don't give themselves enough time to get there. They like, even if they try to be alone, they're still in that first 24-hour like bit, right? Like where they can get out of it, right? And it's like not so fun. Like the first 24 hours, I'm like, I should call my friends, I should text everybody, like, what am I doing? And then like if you can really push past that, right? You push past that, there's like a mental clarity that I think you just get to. And like things bubble up, right? Like I'm really curious about your experience, but like all sorts of things bubble up. But by the end of it, you realize like, I think if anybody does this once, they're like afterwards, they're like, why do people not do this more often, right? Like it's just so obviously valuable. What was your experience in the silent retreat?
Yeah, so I will say it was like self-facilitated. I didn't like go to one of these ceremonial places, so it
That's
wasn't
fine.
like true meditative, but right, it was like what I could access at the time. And I paired it with a fast. It was my first like 5-day extended fast. So like
I read about you doing this. Yeah, you wrote
kind
about
of like
this.
a duality of challenges in and of themselves. But the silent retreat, I do completely empathize with like that first day being very fidgety. Like I'm not an anxious by nature person. I'm really not super fidgety and like neurotic. But when I like got dropped off and then the car left and like the first few hours, I legitimately like at the cabin I was staying at, I like sifted through every drawer in the entire house and like reorganized stuff and like opened and closed like cabinets, like empty cabinets. And I was like, I sat back down when I finished. I was like, why did I just do that? Like, there's nothing here. It's an empty cabin. I didn't bring anything. Like, but I think it was, yeah, just that nervous energy. Like, we're clearly just constantly almost like vibrating or shaking. And then when you get into that true still space where the environment is no longer like humming, you have to like settle essentially.
Yeah. Why exactly? Like to your point, like it doesn't have to be like an organized retreat. You can literally just rent a cabin anywhere and like go do this. I feel like it's like a rite of passage that more people should be doing, right? It's like get to know yourself, right? Like who are you away from all the external influences, right? Like I always think I have certain interests, and then one of the things I do when I would go to my house in Joshua Tree is that like I'd be like, oh, I'm interested in all these things, and then like I would then free myself, my mind from any internal, inputs, and I find that I'm really curious about all these random things I hadn't thought about for a long time, right? It's like in that freedom of thought, like new things emerge that wouldn't have been distracted away by like normal life. So it's just like, yeah, like you said, like you just rent a cabin, you go for a few days, and like you chill, and like you're quiet. And I just think that that kind of stuff is really valuable. And like, was it life changing for you? Like I imagine it. Like I think I read. Didn't you write like a post about this? Like I think I read about it.
Well, I appreciate you reading through the thread I did. It was interesting. I think part of it is when you have any expectation in life, like as a meta principle, you're likely to be met with at least something different and likely something below your expectation.
Yeah.
And I think that partially because it was paired with the fast, the two challenges maybe interplayed in an interesting way where like, a fast is physically difficult. And if you have other stuff to distract you, you're not focused on how hungry you are. But I also had nothing to do and no other inputs. So I was kind of just in a bit of a suffering state. And then I
That's
also I also went in hoping for, like you're kind of almost alluding to, like this spiritual, like a divine revelation, like some massive amount of clarity, an angel visiting me, whatever. And unfortunately, I can report that nothing like that happened. But upon reflection and in that like last day, I do think, and I was like positively affirmed, and maybe this is just like, self bias, it's whatever. I can't really remove that. But I do think that I was really empowered because I think that I created the space necessary for some sort of answer to come through. And the fact that no like massive redirection or pivot came through, it meant that I was likely doing a lot of the things right. And I need to continue on this path, or at least that's how I chose to receive it. So that's me self authoring, but like that was my, I guess, answer that I got.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the thing. It's like, you can't chase, spiritual revelation. But like, I think what you did, well, first of all, you said something like an unbelievably hard challenge, right? It's like do both, like pick one. Right? Like one of them is hard enough, right? To do both is, I think so by setting yourself that challenge, right? Like you're also testing your own strength, right? Which is like another like a thing about self-efficacy, right? Like you can kind of test yourself. But I don't think I would ever do them at the same time, but like just going and being alone, like yeah, but then it's even things like you pay more attention to what you eat because you're alone, like all these kind of things that like just come up. But yeah, you can't force it. Like sometimes I notice like I will go for walks, and sometimes I go for walks and I'm like, why don't I feel the ecstasy that I feel like 99% of the day? It's like you can't, like it doesn't come, like you can't. It's like you said, like that you have to allow for space. Sometimes things work, sometimes they don't work, but if you set the intention and do them enough, you start to like figure out like here are little key like leverages that I can like kind of pull to like put my mind in different states. Like I know now if I go for a really long walk, and I mean like 6 miles plus, it will change my mood. Like not necessarily even for the better, but it will definitely change my mood into a new direction. That doesn't mean I necessarily come out of it as like, glorious, high integrity person. Sometimes by the end of it, I'm in a terrible mood and I'm like arguing with my boyfriend. But like still, it's like I understand that these changes happen and like new things can come to the surface. It's like it's about the process, right? Like you can't control the end goal of the process. You just have to let the process happen, right? So it's seeing beauty in that, and as opposed to like chasing a goal for it so much. Like you just can't, right? Like
Yeah, and that's another really hard duality to manage. And I'm curious how you do. I asked Winston kind of the same type of thing, like any sort of creative, and I honestly think like even in tech, like we are creatives. Humans are creatures, creations, create like we are
yeah.
meant to create things. And so naturally, as creative beings, we have to create space for that revelation. But like there's a really fine line, like the being doing duality of the artist. Cause like you go too far on one end of the just being and waiting to be struck, you'll be likely homeless and not really create much significant art. And then the other end of the spectrum is you look at somebody maybe like a Picasso, and it was something like he created a piece of art for like 73 years consecutively, like every day. And I don't know. I asked Winston about that. He brought up a really cool quote from Bukowski where it was from women, and he said, "Any fool can chase skirts. It takes discipline to sit in the writer's chair." So, how for you, especially with things like writing or even just trying to create works that are eventually going to be received by the world, how do you balance like, I want to wait for inspiration, but I also know I need to take action?
Yeah, I mean it's a hard project, especially when you have like deadlines and stuff, right? Like, Mike and I worked on the Every Angel is Terrifying video. Like we could have waited. There are so many other directions we could have gone to. There are so many things that, if we spent more time thinking about it, that we could have added and done all this kind of stuff. And like it's not like putting a hard limit on like your time is like necessarily good, because like it can restrict you from getting into flow state at all. But like, I think one of the things I've realized is like I'm never going to be completely happy with something, right? Like it's just like letting go of that, right? Like for instance, why have I not done podcasts for the last few years? Because like every time I watch them, I'm just like I'm really hate, like who likes their own voice, and like I don't know, it's like weird, right? I think now I've just come to this other thing, which is other stage, like creation, right? Which is like you can't hold everything to perfection, right? Like you put things out there and then you learn and you keep going and you make more things. Like I'm really glad that me and Mike put out the practice film. It inspired us maybe to do new films, right? Like, it doesn't have to all be in one film, right? I might do well on one podcast, I might not do well on, might not do great on others. Like you all just, you have to tie yourself a little bit less to the outcome of it, right? And enjoy the process. And I feel the kind of same way about creative stuff. It's like I go and I make things, and sometimes I'm my own worst enemy. So I'll be like, oh, I shouldn't do these things because I'm not very good at it, right? Like I'll be like, and like people will say like, oh, you're a great writer. It's like, well, I haven't written anything for years. Like, why haven't I written anything for years? Like, because I read all my drafts and I'm so self-critical. I read it and I'm like, well, this is like, I don't want to put this out. And I go back and read my old stuff and I'm so embarrassed by it, right? Like I don't know how people escape that. It's like just like one of the conditions of being human. But you have to detach yourself from it, from your own insecurity a little bit, and just say like, it's brought value to some people, and like, people, it's not that it's not that necessarily you need external like validation, but to realize that if you're doing high integrity things, you're trying to spread beauty or trying to make things and you have good intentions, there's a lot of people who don't care and who also have bad intentions. So like the people who are so self-critical with good intentions, like need to quiet down that self-critic, right? Because like we have a duty to like put out beautiful things in the world. So it's like sometimes I think about it more of like, what happens if I died, right? Like, how about if I found out I had a terminal illness or something like a year? I'd be so mad that I haven't published all of my writing, right? Like, it's like, what am I waiting for? To like figure out the answer? It's like, no, I just have to say like a better way to handle it instead is to say like at the beginning of writing an essay, like this is according to my current levels of justification. Like this is what I currently believe, and like to free yourself a bit from like people putting you in a box or something like this. So they're like practice, like theory versus action stuff. It's something I battle with all the time. Like that's why I don't write enough. But I like memento mori, right? Remember you will die. Like if you remember you will die, like would it be better that like all your stuff was stuck in like Google Drafts? Like probably not. Like people will benefit from it.
Yeah,
So
I'm smiling. For those just listening, I'm smiling ear to ear because I have Memento Mori tattooed on my arm, and it's like the closer of this podcast because I do think that that razor of death, it makes life it can be very freeing. I think it is like the ultimate freedom if you choose with that frame.
Yeah, and one of the things I like about the the memento mori mindset, which is actually what I wrote in my, this is why I felt I was a good fit for this podcast, with memento mori is what I wrote in my yearbook as my yearbook statement.
Mm.
I wrote memento mori, and the reason why I wrote that was that actually if you go to like the some of the museums, I don't know if you've been to the V&A and in the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, but like if you looked at old wedding rings, like kind of 14th, 15th century wedding rings, actually they engraved in the wedding rings memento mori. And it was like a thing to like remind people when they like went into a marriage or into a union, that like you will die, like you should make the most of like time and like effort. Like if you hold that in your mind, right, like that, like your days will be numbered at one stage. Even though like I want there to be increases in longevity, I don't want to get sick. Like these aren't like contradictory thoughts. You can both like understand about death and also like want to further advance science, right? But like if I get hit by a car, like science is not going to necessarily help me tomorrow, right? So when you start to think about that, it's like it puts a little bit more of like an impetus on you, right? It's like actually produce and do things. And I've always held this in my mind. I actually think memento mori is a really romantic engagement ring, right? Like what a beautiful thing to like to be under that framework, to be like, like what's the point of arguing, or like let's put things into context, right? Let's really put it into context of what it means to like be alive and have life. And as you get older, you lose more people, right? Like people around you die, and you're like, man, like I wish that they'd been even more of themselves, right? They'd given even more to the world. Like that's always like what I wish. Like anyone I lose anyone, like I lost my father, I was like, I wish he'd given out more of his energy into the world, right? Like we all need to put things out. So yeah, memento mori is a beautiful. Is a kind of a beautiful concept to think about it, and again doesn't go against like being supportive of biology research, right? Like it's
And it goes to like a very first principles thing, which is like finitude creates the value in and of itself. Like if there was just no end date to life, like many people would end up in just like kind of a pure hedonic, nihilistic side of the camp, because also why would you do anything if you just had infinite time? But that constraint, that urgency, and even goes to the creative process. Like if your life is your massive constraint, then set a timer to start writing. If you only have an hour to get out some art, you might be able to squeeze something out that's beautiful. Maybe you don't, but like if you did that on a consistent basis, write a page a day, whatever your constraint is, I think that's how you can facilitate art in a meaningful way. And then when you look at your life macro, like this is your window. Like you got to hit, like write your page, give your gift.
yeah, no, that's something that me and Dave Perel really bonded over as well, which is that like you don't have to set yourself like arbitrary deadlines to do stuff, but I think reminding yourself like life goes really fast. Like I mean, how old are you now? 20, did you say 24? How old are you?
24, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'm 10 years older than you. I swear to God, like it went so fast, right? Like I was 24, I was like writing drafts, and I'm like 34, and those drafts are still there, right? It's like it just goes really fast. Like and I think as you get older, it just gets even faster and faster. And then the problem is, as you get older, more and more responsibilities come up as well, right? So like you're always distracted doing other things. And actually, I think one of the joys of being in your 20s is that you haven't, well, you shouldn't, I mean, some people do, but have as many responsibilities, that you should have some a little bit more free time to like go and write and be creative and explore new mediums of communication, or like read more books and do more things, right? And I feel like that is like something that like people take for granted in their 20s, right? Like it's just something that happens, and like you don't want to like, I put all my like 2 Christmases ago, like I have my website now, like my it's like hard to write, and it's hardtowrite.com, and I put all my old blog posts, like the ones I was proud of, which is not all of them, but I put them all on like a centralized website. And if you look at the about me page for that, it says like, hey, like I put all these here because I realized like I don't want to die one day and then to all be like in the cloud or like on Wayback Machine or like Internet Archive, because like the magazine has gone down, right? So it's like I want there to be a place where it's like, here's things that I've written that like, like, and I wrote a disclaimer. I was like, I don't stand by all my thoughts, but like I want to share them here. And like people read them, then you find friends, right? Like, and I think that's one of the great things about like writing and putting out content, right? You made this podcast, you wanted us to connect. Like I ended up watching the one with Winston, and then we ended up like connecting. It's like the more you put things out, the more chance you have for serendipity and synchronicity to happen in weird ways, right? It's like I put out my weird disease pathogen article, and I ended up running like a biology conference and making all these new friends in a new field. It's like you should see your creative tool not as your creative output not actually necessarily as the end goal, but it's a key to unlocking like a whole new world, right? Like you put out a podcast, you meet all these new people, you like do all these things. I put out an essay, and like people will message me and say like, hey, I've been thinking about that, like we should get coffee. And it's like it's like it's actually it's not the end. It's like the creative output is like the key to unlock something new in your life. And when you see it like that, then it's like, okay, well, between memento mori and the fact that like I want to go learn all these things about the world, then we should be putting out way more stuff.
And I do think that, especially as a young person, like anyone listening to this, it is a massive boost in self-confidence and self-esteem when you start to assemble some version of a body of work. Like that's one thing that almost by accident, like there was no forethought, like I can promise you that. But like looking back now, like this will be episode 60 of the podcast. I have no end date in sight because I just enjoy the conversation in the medium. And I'm very excited by what it's producing in my life and the life of others. But I look back now and like that is a proper body of work, right? Like I can look at that with pride and that it's there. No one can take it away. Like those articles aren't leaving hard to write. Like you made those. They are there, frozen in time for whoever until like the elites turn the internet off. So like it's cool as a young person, and I think like everyone should find their thing that they're at least okay with producing. Like you don't have to love it. You don't have to think your life is going to be this massive art pursuit, but like creating something that becomes a body of work over time is a massive way to assemble self-confidence, self-esteem, and like just general like pride in yourself, which I think is one of those things that backfills or boosts self-efficacy. Because then you look back and be like, well, I did that one, and then I did another one, and then I did another one. It's like, well, shit, I did 50 of those things. Who's to say I can't go build this other thing?
Yeah, and I, if people want to take like the first steps, like I mean, I'm not ashamed of doing this, but when I first started writing philosophy, when I was like I started putting things like philosophical content out when I was like 16. But for the first like 8 years, like I used pseudonyms, and I'm not saying that like people can say that it's like cowardly and whatever, but I think for some people it's a great entry point, right? It's like you're nervous and you want to like start putting things out there, or you want to like it could even just be about like commenting in Reddit, right? And like going into an industry or like going into like different things. Like the cool thing about the internet is like the world is your oyster and you can be pseudonymous. And like when I first started writing my philosophy, and it was like, these are really weak views. I just like I wanted to more like test, like it's like being on testnet, right? It's like instead of like putting it out on like mainnet, it's like being on Sepolia but not on ETH. But like you want to put things ideas out and you want to see what people's immediate feedback is, like see where your blind spots are. Like it's not ready for like mass, like not necessarily mass, but like even feel like immediate network, right? You don't want to put something out there. It's like just try doing things pseudonymously, right? Then you get feedback and you learn, you start to build up your confidence from like strangers, right? Like, and a bunch of my early philosophy was that. Like I published under like a weird, like nobody has cracked it, which is I'm actually quite impressed by. But like I published everything under a pseudonym. And then as I got older and I found my voice, right? I started to find my voice. I also like had this confidence of realizing that I already put things out there. Like you don't have to go all in. Like I'm never going to be someone who like starts a podcast immediately. Like I'm the kind of person who has to start like a pseudonymous like philosophy blog, right? Like, but you can just choose your entry points. So it's like even if you have low self-efficacy, like make the stakes lower, right? Like you can find a way to like give something or like produce something for the world and like find your people, but it doesn't have to necessarily be like you as like the star of the show. Like that's what I said to you. Remember before we took this podcast, I was like, I really want to talk about ideas and not about myself. Because one of the things I noticed when you go on most podcasts is that everyone's like asking you about your life and like blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, I want to be evaluated for my ideas, not for like the situations I've ended up in, right? Unless they're out of my own volition. So it's like the same thing for most people. Like if you think you have interesting ideas, like go write about them pseudonymous, start a pseudonymous Twitter, start a pseudonymous blog, like write things, right? And like see how it goes. And it's a much easier way to like just put yourself out there.
Yeah, and I think we've seen almost like I hesitate to call it a proper renaissance, but there's like a subculture of these anon kind of faceless accounts and theme pages.
Yes.
Like we even have like a mutual connection. I'm hoping to have him on the podcast, like Solbra. And then I already
Love
had
that.
Homer Helios, like these characters who are choosing to like keep themselves faceless, but grow massive audiences. Like, and arguably they're still entirely personal brands, even though they aren't associated with a name. But I can imagine like, and I haven't obviously spoken to him specifically about this, but like going back to that first post, it does help a lot to maybe take your face away, while you eventually build the potentially confidence, or maybe it's just a direction you don't want to go to eventually put yourself out there. I do think that like I'm in the camp that vulnerability and authenticity like is the heaviest lever that you can pull. So if you can get yourself to the place where you put your name behind it and you share your pain, your experiences, like everything that you've gone through, you let other people be seen and heard through that. But to whatever degree people feel comfortable, I think it's very important they do that for themselves. And then ultimately that becomes an expression for the world.
Yeah, no, and it could also just be like one of the reasons why people might want to do things pseudonymously is like also could be the case like it's contrarian to their immediate network, right? Like maybe their immediate family wouldn't agree. Like I went to a really religious school. Like it's funny because like my arc in like religious and theological thought is like completely 360. But I went to a really religious school and I didn't like feeling like told to like pray and like do all these things. And I started like an anonymous blog when I was like 14 to discuss religious pressures at school, and like I found all these friends, right? And it's like, I don't think I could have done that in my own name because I would have got into loads of trouble, right? But it's like, it found a way for me to like go find like-minded people who are just like, okay, like I don't like being told what to do over here, right? So it's like, for some people, it's a great way in. And like for other people, it's like, another reason why like the soul browsers of this world and some of these Twitter accounts are pseudonymous is that like, they're doing things and like they want to be about for their thoughts, right? Like, and so this sometimes it's like I do agree with you that being vulnerable and authentic and everything is true and like it is valuable. But like a lot of times, like, the problem is this like new kind of reality TV kind of age where like everything's so invasive, right? It's like if you have ideas and like you try to like people like crucify people, like they like find other things in their past and they do stuff. Now, I think that more people should just be like, like everyone's done bad things in the past. Everyone has like not a full like, clean background. I'm sure I've said terrible things if you just search my Twitter account for like 3 years, right? Like everyone's always so worried about getting canceled, right? And I think your point is correct, which is that if you have authenticity and integrity and vulnerability, like you're not cancelable. Like who are you can be cancelable? It's like I can defend anything I said and like explain it within context. But I think for some people, if they've got some contrarian views or stuff, like why not just start off anon and find your voice and find your people and then start to emerge and like emerge from like the chrysalis, I guess.
Completely agree. Well, Riva, I think we could continue to do this all day. I know that you have a flight to catch, so I want to be respectful of your time. But as you know from listening before, I have three closer questions that I ask every guest. So the first of the three is if you could go back to a younger version of yourself and tell her one thing, what would that be?
Well, you got asked a similar question recently, and the answer I gave to myself was to be more authentic and to be more fearless to the point of like, posting your drafts and doing all these things. Like I wish I hadn't held myself back. Like I don't hold myself back that much, but I wish I'd leaned into everything even more. Like you only regret it as you get older, to be honest. Like your drafts become true, and then you're like, wow, I wish I'd posted them 5 years ago. So yeah, I just be more fearless and be authentic, more authentically myself would be one.
Amazing. The second is, as you know, I'm a big quote person. You are also a big quote person. So what is one quote that's always stuck with you or that you try to live by?
Well, I have a massive Rilke quote written in my bedroom here, and it just says, "Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror."
Mm,
I just think it's a great quote because it's like, we can something that we've gone over, like you can medicate away human emotion, but like you have to oscillate. So you have to understand like the lows to appreciate the highs. And like I live with that quote in my bedroom, like let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful Rilke line.
amazing. And then finally, what do you believe is your unique gift to give the world?
What is my unique gift to give the world? Um, I I really hope that like whatever, if I have any kind of legacy, like even in a minimal way, like even in my immediate friends and family, but like I really want to like this thing about um finding joy in little details and living an ecstatic life, right? And like as I watch the world become much more online and not paying attention to the running water anymore, right? Like to our earlier conversation, I would hope that like if I have any kind of legacy and any kind of gift I want to give to the world, is just that I really, really love being alive. Like I literally made stickers saying this. I made stickers saying I really, really love being alive and then stuck them on all my friends, right? It's like I just hope people realize like how cool and amazing it is to be alive and to get to experience things like good or bad. And I think like if there's any way I can communicate that, which is why I want to try and do more, public facing things, like it's something that I feel like a lot of people don't have, and it's like so obvious to me that I would like to be able to spread it more and like and see people just realize like that being alive is such an amazing gift, and it's every day is just like a massive adventure, a world of opportunity, like if you start to realize it, right? So I think that I would like that to be my gift is probably the better answer.
I can't imagine a more beautiful note to end on. Riva, it's been a pleasure. I hope you fly safely. Where can the people find you, and what are you working on right now that you're excited about?
I'm on Twitter periodically, but like I'm trying to not be online so much all the time, but I am on Twitter. And then right now I'm apart from writing philosophy and doing things and reading and thinking about history, I'm mainly focusing on crypto because I think that like the US economy is fucked. So like
Maybe a not so optimistic note to land on,
yeah,
but
yeah, sorry. The US economy is fucked, but it's really great to be alive. It's like
it is
that.
great to be alive, and I'll have to stay in touch because I too am very concerned about the U.S. economy. But for
Cool.
those listening that enjoyed this, you can follow along more of these. Just search the Vitruvian podcast or my name, Zach Shankin, on YouTube. That'll be the call to action. Subscribe. It's been an amazing journey thus far. Excited for many more of these in the future. You can also follow me at ZDSCHENK on Twitter, Instagram. Message me on any of those. I love to discuss ideas clearly and would love to hear from any of you guys. But Riva, it's been excellent. So thank you for this one. For those listening, thank you for spending your time and attention, your most valuable resources with both of us today. Memento Mori, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the Vitruvian podcast.
And if he fails, at least fails while daring greater, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat.